Okay, I'd like to thank all of you for showing up, coming out, and recognizing the importance of New London as a place to live, and New London as a place to grow, and New London as a place worthy of being preserved for future generations. And part of what we do here at the library and through the London Landmarks is see that that's always a consideration, the impact on our history, the impact on our sense of place, which in much of our country is being wiped out, unfortunately. But I think there's younger generations that want to live in a healthy urban environment, and they're not ready yet for a car-dependent suburban lifestyle, which is still pushed to this day. But I think that's changing. Want to embarrass 3 people before we start. Michael has already been embarrassed sufficiently enough, so I'll pass out along on Michael. We have Counselor Ephraim Dominguez, Ephraim, stand up. Like Michael, who was a counselor, and Ephraim, they spend a lot of sit time, and they listen to people, and it takes a while really to hone in on what you want to do and what you have to work with. So Michael and Ephraim, I appreciate your efforts. We have also people here from the board. Please stand. Go ahead. Laura, the Board of Education. Okay, Elaine, Board President. There we go. All right, and then one other person comes to mind. I want to thank our sophomore year at St. Bernard's. Michael and I had a great English teacher. Michael can speak for himself. He went on to get a degree at College in English literature. I started getting interested in reading short stories from various authors that I didn't have patience for their novels. And I just want to say thank you to Mr. Lamro. Stand up. He was as good a teacher in the classroom as he was a coach on the sidelines. He's a wonderful human being. Thank you. All right, I put this up here. I came across this. One of the great things about doing research now is the availability of the internet, the availability of looking through archives of newspapers, such as the New London Day, going back to 1881, city directories. I can walk with this. City directories, what else? Books that you can hold in your hands. This woman, Jane Jacobs, is very important in the history of preservation. She stopped Robert Moses from pushing through the Manhattan Expressway through Washington Square and Greenwich Village, if you can imagine. He wanted an expressway, the cross Manhattan Expressway through Lower Manhattan that would have gone through Washington Square, excuse me. Anyway, the death and life of great American cities. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to read, but it's interesting. And I got some inspiration and some good analogies from what happened in Manhattan and other boroughs and how that affected the local population. Anna Valia is an architectural professor up at College. She and a group of her students 2 years ago, I believe, collaborated on this book, Urban Renewal and Highway Construction in New London from 1941 to 1975. And on it is a view of what New London is supposed to look like today, drawn in 1961. It never materialized, but there it is. 3 luxury apartment towers and speedways to drive wherever you want to within a matter of minutes. Gotta mention John Ruddy, Reinventing New London. This is through Arcadia Publishing, which also published Lost New London through their Lost Place series. Want to give John a mention because a lot of Lost New London picks up where John kind of left off. The two complement each other chronologically, and also in depth coverage. New London Police Department by the Keatings, and there's also a companion through, blanking on her name, Tara Samuel. New London Fire Department. I don't have a copy with me tonight, but it's there in spirit. One other book, Cities Back from the Edge. This is kind of an updated version of Jane Jacobs, and it came out in '95, and I found it a lot of interesting reading here and what cities have done to reverse the effect of the automobile on their downtowns. And then this, Bob Blanchard, this is what I first read before starting to write and research Lost New London, called Lost Burlington, Vermont. What's cool is they asked me, do you want it, this is the publishers, Arcadia Publishing, do you want Lost New London, Connecticut, or Lost New London? No, Lost New London is sufficient. You don't need to put Connecticut after it. All right, so this is from August 29th, 1961. I came across this in doing research, and one for the donkey. Customer casually gave his order yesterday to Albert Sasha, cooking hamburgers and hot dogs at McGraw Drive-In, 272 Pequot Avenue. Who remembers McGraw? Okay. I'll have a hot dog, the customer said. Then he pointed to the roof. And give one to the donkey as well. At first I thought something was wrong with this guy, Sasha said. But then he looked up at the rear of his stand and saw a statue of a donkey. The donkey came from the lawn of the resident at 40 Mott Avenue. Anybody know who lived at 40 Mott Avenue in 1961? Ribicoff. The donkey belonged to Ribicoff, a symbol of the Democratic Party. And some pranksters had taken the donkey and put it on the roof of Magras. All right, so, I'm sorry, Violet, is it page up, page down, arrow right, arrow left? Which is
Arrow
it?
right.
Arrow right? Nope. Nope. All right, what's at 272 Pequot now? Yeah, Fred Shandy. That came from Google Street Maps. I just thought updated version of what was there that I don't have a picture of, just the newspaper article. All right, so, for some reason those weren't in order. Copy of the book, front cover on the right, right, and back cover on the left. That's kind of a mystery photo. A lot of the pictures did not have, the pictures had a couple of sources I should recognize right now. Foremost, the color shots that you're going to see here are invariably from the collection of George Oldershaw. When I was working on 94 Golden Street, early 2000s, his sister, Bess Oldershaw, came into the front door where the art gallery is now, Cat Murphy's art gallery. And she says, I got something for you because I think you'll appreciate what's in this bag. It was a loose bag of about 150, 160 color slides that her brother George, who she ran the Vauxhall Inn with during the 80s and the 90s, okay? She said, take these. Some of them are labeled, some of them aren't, but do with them what you will. I put them in order. I first learned about Sanborn fire insurance maps, which are invaluable in locating what was at a certain period of time. The most recent map that would help me is 1954. So that's what I took out the maps. Of course, you have to do it paper. There was no internet when I first did a slideshow. But anyway, this was one of the few houses I was unable to identify. You can tell that it's already been emptied. There's a bathtub waiting for the scrap on the sidewalk, and the dormer on the top. Very common construction, asphalt shingling over the clapboard. And if anybody thinks they know where that is, I'd love to find out, because I haven't been able to find out where it was, and so I don't even know who lived there. All right, this is an example of the Sanborn fire insurance maps. They go back for New London to about 1881, I believe. I could be wrong, it could be 1870 something. These are from 1954, and on the right-hand side, I didn't bring a stick. On the right-hand side is Main Street, running from Church, which is now Governor Winthrop Boulevard, up through Federal, Shapley, Hill, and then Richards. And you can see all the pink buildings are brick construction. You've got a beautiful carriage house behind, I'm blanking on the funeral parlor, Alderson Prentice Funeral Parlor here on Federal. Beautiful castle-like carriage house. You had the Abba Chazed synagogue right here. That was the old AME church. And a couple of others. Oh, BP Learner House, which obviously was masonry. And that was the Lawrence House. And then above it was the Minor House. Both families made their money from whaling, and they built villas here. This one was demolished in the early 50s, and this one, redevelopment tore down after it served its last purpose as their field office in 1967. Okay? And this up here, this other pink structure, that was Whaling City Ford. Anybody remember there was a Model T Ford on the roof of that building? That Model T Ford, just like the donkey from the front of the Ribicoff home, Model T Ford was stolen. And not only that, it was stolen and then they replaced it, then the hurricane removed it in '38. And so they found a Hulk and they just put a Model T Hulk up there, no engine, nothing, just the profile of a Model T, and set it up there. And I don't know what happened to it. Obviously the building came down, and a lot of times the Barnum demolition in Bridgeport, like Barnum and Bailey Circus. Barnum demolition in Bridgeport often took whatever was inside the building and channeled it to Stanford house wrecking. Anybody's familiar with Stanford house wrecking? I don't know if they're still in business, but they did architectural salvage. A lot of it came from New London because there wasn't the awareness, or really it was a mindset. I'll just briefly, it was a mindset that we were moving New London into the 60s, into a more progressive stage where we could kind of work with a clean slate, hence all of this had to come down. Over 500 buildings were demolished between 1962 and 1970. It lasted till 1970. They started in East New London. Then when they finished with East New London, they went over to the top of Main Street, just below Hodges Square, and then they worked their way progressively down, going block by block by block. And they received additional money from the federal government to expand the footprint of the urban renewal area to include what would be the future parking garage across from the hotel. That was the Brainerd Armstrong Silk Mill. It was actually being used by the Beat brothers who had the supermarket. Max Beat owned the building, and he had an incubator operation going on. And one of the businesses that started at that mill later expanded once the building was torn down and they had to relocate. Now they're known as J-Pro, and they manufacture sporting goods, sporting equipment. And so another one was Faria Tachometer. They started at the Brainerd Armstrong Silk Mill, and that is where the parking garage is today. That building was taken down. I think I have a picture of it in the show, I forget. That building was taken down, and in 1970 they built the parking garage that faces the hotel, and it's next to the Isaac School. That fortunately the YMCA was not part of the project area. All right, moving along. There it is. This whole complex here, the Brainerd Armstrong Mill. As far as mills are concerned, it was constructed in the last decade or so when mills such as these were being built. 1895 this was built. So when this was torn down in 67, it was barely 70 years old. We also took the ladder company, Conomic Ladder Company also went, this big building here. I talk about both places. I had some anecdotes about both places in the Lost in London book. Post office, bowling alley, that's mentioned. The Skouras bowling alley. Skouras brothers had a confection and ice cream stand on the other side of the river at Groton Landing. And they set up a bowling alley here in 1920, in the late 20s. And just about every group, from postal workers to grinders at EB, had a bowling team. Some of the bowling leagues were categorized by profession. You had the butchers from AMP, you had the stock boys from IGA, different professions within the grocery business. So it was very popular at one time, and there was no automatic reset of the pins. I have a fellow by the name of, you may know him. I shouldn't bring up names because then I blank on them, but it doesn't matter. He was a pin boy at Skouras in the 30s and the 40s, and he would be paid maybe 10 cents an hour to manually put the pins back every time after somebody, bowled their turn. So that's it. Let's move on. Okay, this is further up on the westerly border of the redevelopment project area was Huntington. So everything east of Huntington, including Huntington itself, except for Whale Oil Road, which is here, which is down there. Yes, thank you very much. No, down this way. I'm not oriented myself right. All right, so Huntington, we go in this direction. That goes in towards Hodges Square. Go in this direction here. We go right by where AMP was, where Tony D's is now. And everything to the east of that was taken down. But again, these are the types of maps I use to identify where somebody's house was, especially after reading reports in the New London Day. All right, so come on. All right. This is one of Oldershaw's pictures. George Oldershaw took this picture in 1961. I like this picture because it's pretty much all gone now. There's nothing recognizable. The smokestack from Brainerd Armstrong is gone. Alas, the church spire is now gone. There was a railroad crossing here with a crossing tender in this tower. The crossing is gone because the crossing just fed ferry traffic out of downtown towards 95, so the crossing was eventually closed and they put it at Governor Winthrop Boulevard. This was a blacksmith's shop that was built around 1900. This was B.P. Leonard House, and where this empty space is where they later installed a playground for their children's programs. That was the Minor Villa, and the two were identical. Again, the Minor Villa here was taken down in the early 50s. Well, I'm showing you these pictures because they're in color. In the book, it's just a black and white format. I apologize for that. The only color you'll see is on the front cover and in the back. It's a little colorized. So these are kind of a treat. First, you got this nice punch buggy, this VW Bug. I can just guess what the red car is, but it says Smith Insurance on it. Wow, Smith Insurance. Back of the church, the nave, Economic Ladder Company. Again, this building served as the field office for redevelopment and then was taken down roughly the same time as the Brainerd Armstrong Mill in 67, 68. Here it says New London Instrument Company. That would later be tachometers, Faria. Faria actually started working on battery radios at his home on Denison Avenue. Interestingly enough, and then eventually he wound up in Montville.
And now they're in North Stonington.
North Stonington, thank you. So anyway, that's a good shot. I'm not sure what that car is.
And that's the post office.
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you. That's the post office right there, so that hasn't changed. That's still there. All right, this is interesting. The guard is right here. At the corner, there was Dell's Esso station. This was the same Dell that had a hardware store and fixed lawnmowers at the corner of Howard and Bank Street. Anybody remember there was I think it was 3-story brick building, may have been 4. And right in the corner it was Dell's Hardware, and I remember my father taking his lawnmower there when he couldn't fix it himself. This is Church Street, which would later be widened to Governor Winthrop Boulevard. This is the, I want to say Barnes House. And this was where the offices of some pretty prominent New London lawyers were. A. Washington had his head of the Democratic Town Committee, had his office there. It was a colonial building built in this picture isn't very good because it's blocked by the tree, but about 1800. Supposedly President Monroe spent some time there in his travels. If you look down here, of course all this is gone. Gates and Beckwith Home Interiors was there. Rand Instrument Company was there. And then you had Union Street, and Union Street was all houses, going as far as the police station at Federal. And of course, Main Street is right about here, right about there. So, I like this shot. It's color. We're standing on the sunny side of Main Street. This is the east side. And this is the Jiggs package store. You know, bringing up Father, the comic Jiggs and Maggie from the 20s, and I think it lasted into the 60s. I remember reading it occasionally. Jiggs package store. This is Federal Street. Federal Street went down to the railroad tracks at one point, went down the hill. This is Jiggs package store. They were relocated to Howard Street, and guess what happened within 10 years? They had to move again because of the second phase of redevelopment. This time, not Winthrop Cove, but Shaw's Cove. George Talage, who was a property owner further down Main Street by Shapley? Shapley. Interesting too. I think he relocated, but no, he didn't. I think he passed on. It's interesting, a number of these business owners, these business people, once they gave up their property, they passed on within a year or two. I think part of it may have been they didn't have a place to go to. And so that's kind of that's an effect on this type of drastic redevelopment that we don't count on, is the impact on people's lives. And all of these were long-established businesses. There was a Christopherson Plumbing was here. This guy up here, I found out that his name. I actually, by the date and by the city directory and also the phone book, I was able to identify who this was, this fellow up here in the catbird seat, watching the world go by on Main Street. I want to say Sanchez, but I could be wrong. Anyway, again, you see the asphalt brick, the fake brick facing, that's over clapboard. This is all these buildings were clapboard. This was the Fox and Grapes Tavern from roughly 1745. You can see the Dutch gamble roof, the narrow dormer. This is probably some type of asphalt shingling covering clapboard. Salman Nahas, or some people say Nahas, Lebanese, had his grocery store there. He ran with his wife. Bonacci had a clothing store and a shoe store here. Up until this building came down, people had to leave by 1965. And I think they left, and it was kind of sad. They had to leave within a couple of months, and once you know it, somebody came in and robbed them at gunpoint in broad daylight. Took something like $200. Fortunately, it didn't hurt anybody. But redevelopment has already taken this building down. I like one of the early cells. So I'm going to say this is probably, may not be as early as 61. This could be like 64. And as you're heading down here towards, this is Federal, so Church Street would be up there. And then Beat Brothers Supermarket at Masonic would be right there. And then you hit State Street. All right, so onward. This is the other side of the street. There's Jigs, J-I-G-G. Is there an S? No, just Jig. Bringing Up Father comic. I like the detail in the street lamps. That's beautiful. Class, art, not just function, art. Globe Spirit Shops. There was a chain at one point. Seymour Mannheimer, I believe, ran the chain. He owned a lot of property. The Den Restaurant, Genius Homes owned that. What else? What else we have here? Firestone Gas. Reed Burdick's Gulf Station is out of the picture, but it's there. Snyder Hardware was right here. This was Snyder Hardware before it moved to Bank Street across from the Shaw Mansion. There was a shoe repair place. I mean, a lot of little businesses that had been there for a while. And the thing that hit me was this would be a great, if this neighborhood still existed, it would be a great place for somebody without a lot of money, a newcomer, to start a small business, open up a small storefront, live behind the storefront, which was allowed, or live above the storefront, which was common because you had apartments above these businesses. And you wouldn't have to worry about making the leap to a strip mall with better car access. This was where you would start, and your customers would either drive, find parking as they could, or they walked. Okay. That there is the Harris Building, and anything else I can identify for you. And I think that's it.
Who owned those towers, I don't know.
Right here?
Yeah.
Actually, I think those were receiving, those weren't transmitting, those were receiving towers. I believe one may have been used by the fire department, one by the police. I'm guessing. All right, so moving on. Round and round we go. How are we doing on time? So. This is one of the benefits of this slideshow being in color. This is a watercolor by Roger Dennis. Roger Dennis was a curator at Lyman Allen Museum in the 60s and early 70s. He did watercolors of not just buildings being demolished. Anybody recognize what building this is?
It says Learned House.
Yep, it's a BP Learned House being torn down. you can see that there's kind of a, he only did partially a gate, but there's a proper entrance from the sidewalk. There's a veranda, a porch, a wraparound porch, which is still evident here. You've got the cornice with the brackets here, and then the tall windows, and then obviously the Barnum demolition crane. So watercolors. Unfortunately, in the book, they're black and white. This was done about 67. Onward. I like this picture. This picture is the main picture of the thumbnail for the website. Oh, by the way, www.lostnewlondon.com. Whatever didn't fit in the book is on the website. Maps, pictures, family pictures, locations, etc. We're on the other side of Lower Winthrop Cove. Again, BP Learned House, Blacksmith Shop, Crossing Tower. These were actually staffed 24/7. You had a crossing tower at Hallam Street, and you had one at John Street, because you had Water Street and John Street crossing at the same point. It was tricky with all the tracks. This is the Fox and Grapes. You can tell the Dutch gambrel roof, spire of the first Congregational church, and the other buildings along Main Street. Here, don't trip. I'm pointing this out because it's important. This is Shapley Street. This was the Sydney Manufacturing Company. Sydney Manufacturing here, they made mattresses. And they were so economically disadvantaged that they asked for an extension on their demolition date so they could finish filling orders. They needed an extension. That's how economically deprived they were. And they needed urban renewal desperately. So that's one example. There are other examples of businesses that just shut down. The owners were too old to start something else. The children weren't interested in carrying on the business. So that was the case of Sydney. Sydney Manufacturing here in this building started in the 30s. So good 35, maybe 40 years. This is the, I believe, I may get this wrong, the Woodward House. There was a pastor. This house here was built in 1745, and there was a saying from the pastor etched into the glass of one of the window panes. I don't know if the window pane survived the demolition, but again, I believe it's the Woodward House. I sometimes have trouble with these names, but off the top of my head, but this house dated from 1755, 65. This was Captain Rogers Stevens. I always confuse Stevens Rogers with Roger Stevens. This gentleman was the first person to marry steam with sail and propelling vessels across the ocean. He came up with the USS Savannah, was built down in Savannah, Georgia. He was a captain and an inventor from New London, worked heavily with steam, and his vessel, the Savannah, which, and I'm going to say a shout out to the Maritime Museum at the Customs House for supplying me with a picture of the Savannah portrait. It's in the book. I believe it was in 1823 that the Savannah actually went from Savannah over to Europe, all the way up to St. Petersburg, Russia, and then came back. It was the first vessel, non-sail, it was combination sail with steam that had ever done that. And it's the USS Savannah. So that was a feather in New London's hat because, port city, maritime. So this was his house that later became apartments and commercial space. In fact, in John Ruddy's book, he has a picture of this plaque that you wouldn't even notice was there because it's weathered and it's not really in a noticeable spot, but it identifies that three-story building as his house, as Captain Rogers Stevens, I believe that's correct.
Moses is his name, Moses Rogers.
Moses Rogers Stevens.
No, Moses Rogers. His first mate was Stevens Rogers, who was a relative, but Moses sailed in.
Oh, so I gotta think S.R. Stevens Rogers. See, that's where I messed up. I didn't get the order correct, but thank you for telling me. Moses Rogers. Moses Rogers. Gotta visualize it. Moses Rogers. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. This is a close-up. It's kind of cool. The resolution of the slides makes all this possible. B.P. Learned House. This is the house, the Woodward, Pastor Reverend Woodward's house from 1760s. Auto parts. This is interesting. This is a poster for Coleman Brothers. Anybody remember Coleman Brothers? When they had Carnival out off of by Myrock Avenue, where they're building that housing now, behind where Benny's was. State Venetian Blind, that was another New London company. I believe they were also on Union Street. And then Robinson Barbershop. Not just a barbershop, but there were two storefronts. Left storefront was the barbershop. The right storefront was Barber Supplies, which is kind of cool. So, and again, a lot of the people that own these places lived within walking distance. They lived on the side streets. They had a house. I mean, you had a system that was green. We talk about green cities. This was green. Well, aside from lead fuel. This is a cool picture. This is the corner front lawn of B.P. Learned House. This is Main Street. This is Federal Street. That's a police call box. You don't see those anymore. Right here, police call box. The lovely lamp design. That probably all got melted down for something. This side view is the Polish Club on Main Street. Right here, Polish Club, Polish American Club. This was a boarding house, and what was cool is the day paper used to carry something called intentions of marriage. And if you wanted to marry someone, you registered your intention of marriage with the town clerk. So the town clerk every now and then would put a blurb in saying who had an intention of marriage. Well, come to find out there was a couple intending to get married. Both of them met while living in this rooming house. And I found that in 3 or 4 other cases of people who found love sharing under the same roof in their rooming house. And these places just like, you had room and board. A lot of places you could live in New London and many other cities in small and larger towns, you had room and board. And I really think that this is something that once we get a little bit more trust going on between people, it's a healthy type of living arrangement if you're temporarily in a situation and you don't want to sign a year's lease and be bound by it. These places, many of them, you just rented by the week. Off we go. Come on. I think, my opinion, Federal Street was probably the most elegant street of the side streets. And I say that because that's where the villas were and the mansions. This is Union Street. This is Federal Street. If we were standing here, behind us would be the Stanton Building, which was the police station at one point. Behind us is the Stanton Building at 111 Union. You look up here, this was Rabbi Traub's house. He was rabbi for Abba-Chesed synagogue here. He rented rooms. Excuse me. I'm going to need a drink after this, Michael. He rented rooms. And going up here, there was another building, and then hidden away was Frank McGuire's law office, which fortunately he was successful in having that spared from the bulldozer. okay? And that's at the corner of Meridian and Federal Street.
That's St. James Church.
Yes, that's St. James Church up there. On the right are some villas, and I think, let's see if, I'm not sure if we have any pictures of them. Ah, yeah, we do. This is the Henkel house. Henkel was very much a New London family. Some of them were attorneys, some of them were doctors, some of them were city managers. During redevelopment, the first couple of years of the 60s, when redevelopment was on the verge of being passed by voters through a referendum, Edward Henkel was the city manager. He didn't live here, but his family at one time did. And you can see here by the plywood that the house has already been handed over, so to speak, to the redevelopment agency. Now, this picture was taken a couple of years earlier by George Oldershaw. May have been the previous winter. And I just like the way, it's a Christmas card.
Yeah.
The elegance is like Hallmark. So, let's see. There's a good view of it. The house next to it and the one next to that house have been taken down. I'm going to say this is about 1965. Okay? This is the Henkel house, which is going to be next. Wraparound porch. It's directly across from Avicii Synagogue, and
It's
Ahavat
Chesed. Chesed.
Chesed.
And Rabbi Traub's rooming house, I was told, was occupied mostly by women who serviced U.S. Navy sailors.
Jerry. Very good. No, it'll be on the website, though. Thank you, Jerry. Say that again. Ahavad
Chesed.
Chesed.
Good.
Thank you. All right. So they're, they didn't have far to walk to work, did they?
Like
That's very good. I like that.
Trump's grandfather.
I pointed this building out before on the Sanford fire insurance maps. This was a brick carriage house that stood behind Aldous and Prentice. And I believe it was on the second floor that they stored coffins. Okay? You can see, obviously, there's still a carriageway here at the funeral home. And it's really a remarkable structure, castle-like. Now, this is the back of that carriage house, brick carriage house, and we're looking down Shapley Street. Now, if we look down this way, we see at the bottom of the hill, Sydney Manufacturing. They made mattresses. And a couple of other houses here. This house here, 30 Shapley Street. Interesting story. A fellow by the name of Luke Harris lived there with his wife, Jeanette, and his issue was redevelopment was not paying us enough to buy a house elsewhere. He was the first-time homeowner, and this came up a number of times. People that were first-time homeowners that were able to afford a house in this neighborhood, they were comfortable living here. They got an award maybe of $7,000, maybe $5,000. It was not enough to buy a house in Waterford. It was not enough to buy a house elsewhere in New London. So they wound up being renters again.
Yeah.
And that would happen with Luke Harris. Okay, so this is another Roger Dennis watercolor. This, if you look at this house, you'll see it right here. It's brown shingle right here next to Luke Harris's house. Luke Harris's house has been taken down. This house is standing by itself. Glassberg was the family name. They lived there and they had renters upstairs. This is one of 3 Queen Anne Victorian houses, little houses that were running up the other side, the north side of Shapley Street. It says here, Huntington Street, looking down from Huntington, down the hill, along the back of Shapley Street, Roger Dennis, 1962. This collection, again, is part of the collection at Lyman Allen Museum. These are the Queen Anne Victorian houses that were, one of them was pictured during the demolition period here.
They were torn down?
Yeah, all of this is gone. So there were 1, 2, 3. The third one, the Lasky family lived there, and I wrote a little bit about the Laskys because they were in the newspaper. Okay, it was fairly easy. But this picture was taken it's in Lost New London. This picture was taken in '61, and I just like the little details. The ash can or the garbage can, recycled oil can, the pigeons, other things here, the power lines, the details, architectural details, the bay windows, that sort of thing, the archways. It wasn't, what I'm trying to show is it wasn't a slum. It wasn't all a slum. In fact, I'll tell you, there were 567 families had to leave. 567 families. Of those 567 families, only 140 were designated low income. 40? Yeah, 140 out of 567. And those are the redevelopment agency figures. This is Captain Shapley's house at 15 Shapley Street. Shapley was a Revolutionary War hero. Okay. And he started fighting the British. This was in conjunction with British General Arnold's raid in New London, where he wanted to take care of the people that were supporting the privateers who were wreaking havoc on British shipping, harassing them. And so he started his defense with his men from Fort Trumbull. Fort Trumbull was going to fall because of British cannon fire from their ships entering the harbor. So they went over, 3 boats went over to reinforce Groton, Fort Hill, Groton, Griswold, Fort Griswold, thank you. 2 of the boats made it, 1 boat didn't make the crossing. Shapley was wounded, he was carried back to this house, he died 2 weeks later. The house, it's got a for sale sign on it. This picture was taken by Oldershaw about 1960-61. Typical salt box. This was demolished, and this house was built. This house was built. One of the first houses on Shapley Street, Shapley, the name, and about 1765. I write about some of the people that lived in this house. Interesting stories in Lost New London. All right. This is just a look up Shapley Street. All righty. They had trouble with runaway cars on Hill Street, Shapley Street, Richard Street. You angle parked on Richard Street because you couldn't parallel park like this. Streets of San Francisco. All right, we've seen this. This is the Moses. Come on.
Stevens? No.
Moses. Rogers, thank you. All right. Moses Rogers' house. This is Shapley. Down at that end is Hill Street. All right, let's go. Ooh, I'm glad we made it this far. This is important. This is Hill Street. This is the south side of the street. See this little salt box? This house was built in around 1812, 1814 by a freed slave. New London had slavery until about 1820, if you look at the census. 1810, there were 20 slaves. By 1820, New London was down to 6. And slavery was not outlawed in Connecticut until 1848. Connecticut was the last of the New England states to outlaw slavery. All right, interesting. So, his name was Boston Freeman. A lot of free slaves had Freeman as their family name. And he was a worker on Peter Miller's farm in Quaker Hill. Peter Miller gave Boston Freeman his freedom either through buying it or working it off, because in Connecticut, if you kept a slave until they were incapacitated or poor health, it was on you to take care of that slave. If the state had to take care of the slave or the individual or the individual's family because of lack of income, you would reimburse the state for helping this individual or their family out. So he built this. He was an expressman, which is what we would call a trucker. He drove a wagon, loaded and unloaded wagons, and he had a daughter, Martha. Martha married Peter Hull, who was also a freed slave. Came up from Jacksonville. He was a sailor, like New London. He met Martha, he married, and Peter Hull, after Boston Freeman passed on. Peter Hull lived here until 1906, and at 110, he was the oldest individual in Connecticut. This was someone who started life as a slave, and then had a hard life as a sailor. And, through the miracle of being able to research the day paper, there was an interview with Peter Hull in 1903, and a reporter followed him around his daily routine with his little terrier dog, going down Hill Street, going down Main Street, going to the Union Station, and talking with people on City Pier. It's kind of endearing. Alas, all of this disappeared. These other houses were built by sea captains, 1830s, 1840s. This was one of the first houses on the street. This is a view of Main Street. This is Upper Winthrop Cove. There was a little railroad yard here above Hallam Street. This is Moses. Moses Rogers' house here. This here, if you look, you see a red painted Model T. That was Whaling City Ford on the south corner of Richard Street. Richard Street going up like that.
Was that the one that was stolen?
Yes. No, this was the last replacement,
Oh, okay.
and I think the demolition contractor got it.
Ah.
All right. I like this. This is a little power boat here. It says for sale.
And the house they stored at, that I lived in when I was young mother, right on this side of the cove there.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful lawns and gardens, beautiful.
I think that's in this slideshow.
Oh,
here,
good.
because it's color. All right. This is the back of Main Street, Gold Star Memorial Bridge there. We're on Crystal Avenue looking north towards the bridge and Hodges Square. This is the cove side of the back side of the of Main Street. All right, Crystal Avenue is right here, roughly the same location as now, just elevated quite a bit. Okay, and boom.
Is there any reason to stop?
Yeah, because people are getting thirsty.
There's water right there.
No, they're not getting thirsty for water.
Oh.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, and he's rushing through the.
All right. One last word on Mather Court. Mather Court was one of those streets where it was homeowners. There were 6 houses here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe it was this house, another individual who complained that redevelopment awards were not sufficient to buy a replacement house. These are all owner-occupied with a second family helping with their rent, was Linwood Bland. And Linwood Bland, I believe, lived in this house here, 27. And his complaint, as well as that of Lou Harris, was, you're not giving me enough to buy a house somewhere else. I'm going to have to rent. And there was an arbitrator in Hartford that listened to everybody's case, but sometimes the increase would maybe be $500, $600, $1,000, still not quite enough to buy a house. You can find out who she is if you read the book. Very interesting person. When you read about her, you kind of get some respect for the hard life she had. But interestingly enough, we're looking from the top of Stony Hill. That house is technically on Huntington Street, even though it's on Stony Hill. It's just the way the numbering system went. So moving along, this is the top of Stony Hill, and I always thought I'd like to have this house with the view. It's a cool little house. And this is Stony Hill right here. Kind of winds, very narrow, windy street, a lot of character though. Okay, this is Huntington looking north. Huntington Street looking north. This is Stony Hill starting here. And it's about all I can tell you right now. That's enough, I gotta move on. All right, close up going down Stony Hill, the bridge going down to Main Street. That looks like the house, I don't know where it belongs. I don't know, I could be wrong. The mystery house, where was it? Redevelopment and doing a market survey did a description of your property, the lot, the house, or the building, and they figured out through other property values what yours was worth. And if you look here, you can see price $5,000. They used this was a house, 17 Stony Hill. It wasn't Stony Hill Street, it was just Stony Hill. That was a mistake. This was done by one of 4 realtors that did a survey, went from house to house, business to business, wrote it up, and then actually took a Polaroid picture and put it there in that part of the form. Yeah, that's the house. That's the form, 17 Stony Hill, and the price was $5,000, blah, blah, and that's the house. This was a sea captain's house. A lot of seamen lived on these streets because they wanted a view of the harbor. Makes sense. 58 Stony Hill, it's another assessment, and I want to thank Laura for bringing these forms to my attention. Fortunately, New London Landmarks, Laura was the executive director, had these, and she made them available to me, and as well as Alicia.
Primer.
Yes, Primer did so as well. This was the bottom of Stony Hill. Somebody's got the washout. This is Main Street. The Knoll family lived here. At one time they had a grocery store on the other side of Main Street. This is cool. This is another Roger Dennis watercolor. This is that same house where the laundry is hanging out to the tree. This is the beginning of Stony Hill, and that's the house across the street. This is Main Street going towards State Street. You'll like the next one. Well, no, this is the picture. Again, Stony Hill, Main Street, going up the street. That house where the laundry was, and okay, looking up the street, houses left and right. This is the house across the street. Kind of an interesting house. The houses were built for the lots. They were built for the landscape. All right. This is what I want to show you. We'll probably end here because of time. This is Roger Dennis watercolor, and it shows Stony Hill in the wintertime with some snow on it, And I just thought, what a cool greeting card or holiday card that would be. Very cool. You see the building, the unique house on the corner.
And today, they would charge them with blight. They would.
Well,
You can't have that.
I know, a lot of these houses, well, that's another discussion. I took this picture, this is the last picture. No, next to last. I took this picture because I'm going to compare this picture, which was taken during No King's Day, Saturday, not too long ago.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
This perspective, now I'm going to take you to 1961 and see what was there before, if this works. Do
That's
you-
where we left you.
Oh, I'm going to pause at this one. This was a grocery store. This was at Winthrop and Crystal. The Polish Veterans Club is across the street. It says here, this is our last week, store closing November 2nd due to redevelopment. Every day this week, all cash sales. All items must be sold. Store fixtures for sale. Now, this was November 2nd. I think this was 63.
Yeah.
This was November 2nd, 63. Now, I get a kick out of this because you've got this little grocery store, and then you've got the advertising. Now it's Pepsi for those who think young. There's a certain irony there. Okay. So, that's the building where the grocery store was. Again, we're standing on Crystal, and we're looking at Winthrop. That's a good picture, 1960, the interchange track for the Central Vermont and New Haven Railroad. New Haven's tracks are on the left where Amtrak is now, and this actually is out of use. But you had the whole neighborhood there. That corner building right there was Max's Tavern, and probably a few people might remember Max's Tavern, right? Kind of like a Flatiron building right here. Again, the building was built for the contours of the land, the lot, the property. You like that? Like that rocket ship?
I like Zolt's.
Yeah. I think that was Lester's car. This is 1961. Isn't that cool? This was the kosher shop, and this was non-kosher on the corner of Potter Street.
Same
All right,
owner?
we gotta wrap this up. I apologize for these not being in the order. It's Henkel and his wife. Again, for some reason, the order has been discombobulated.
Can I add a little something
Claire.
about Winthrop Street?
Everybody, Claire Dale. Come on, back to Claire. Helped save Union Station.
Yes.
Yeah. There, good. George Oldershaw worked at Pfizer. This is actually Hess's in the background here with all those oil storage tanks, tank cars, railroad tank cars on the right. And that's George Oldershaw, who is responsible for these color photographs. Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Okay, this is what I wanted. I tried to take the picture, No King's Day, from the same standpoint, using the corner of Union Station for orientation. And you can see the Sailors Monument, of course, is there. Neptune Building gone. Bus terminal on the right, kind of behind the Union Station, is gone. GM Williams paint. They had a dynamite toy department, I understand. Two banks, the Victory Theater. Okay. Yeah. And the logic was, the parade's too wide. We need to narrow it. Well, actually, it didn't work out that way because you took the Neptune building down and you didn't put up anything in its place. The parking garage actually starts behind the Neptune building on Atlantic Street. Atlantic Street is behind the Neptune building. All right, so I like this picture also because it shows checker caps, blue caps. And that's also part of Lost New London. We don't have checker caps anymore. There's the last chapter of Lost New London is just on checker cabs, and it's an imaginary two fairs with the same person. It's imaginary in that it's written out of the experiences of three people. Val Tamano's father, who was a blue cab driver, number 21. Greg Stone, reporter for the day, who was a blue cab driver in the summer of '65 and worked these streets. And myself, the summer of '74, driving 21, the same cab that Val's father drove, except that 12 years later, it was relegated to the newbies because it was a running wreck. All right, so I'm going to thank you for your attention, your patience, and if you found this interesting, buy the book. It's free to look at the website. What is the website? www.lostnewlondon.com. And if you want to reach me, very easy, lostnewlondon@gmail.com. Thank you. Oh, where you can get the book. You can get the book a couple of places. Sarah Monroe's Studio 33, the Custom House Gift Shop, Charlotte Hennigan's, Thames River Greenery, Rich Martin's Temporary Autonomous Zone Record and Bookshop. Where else? Come on. Bank Square Books in Mystic, across from the Big Y on Route 1. And I hope I'm not forgetting anybody.
All the traditional booksellers.
Yes, any traditional bookseller could order this book for you. So again, thank you and have a good rest of the evening.
Give it up for Bill Morse. He did a lot of research, a lot of hard work.